Hello, hello. Welcome back to the Urban Pharmacy Podcast. It's me, Stacey Heine, your holistic nutritionist, plant-based coach, and business mentor. I sure hope you're having a great day. I am here with my friend Rachel Detroit. You're going to hear from Rachel. She is a life coach. She is incredible. And she and I are talking about food and food addiction and how she and I have had our own experiences with that and how we overcame our obstacles and how it's really a true journey and something that everybody might struggle with, that a lot of people might struggle with. And maybe they're suffering in silence or struggling in silence, but you can know that you can relate to Rachel and I if you are dealing with any food issues in particular, processed food addiction or food addiction where you just feel like you can't stop. And we kind of go over why you might feel that way in tonight's episode. So I hope that you enjoy this episode. And before we get into it, I want to make sure that you know about my new favorite holistic waterless beauty brand called Oliveda. This is a brand whose mission is to help the world heal with the amazing olive tree. And it is really an amazing concept that is beauty from the inside out and outside in. So I have been taking and using many of the products from Oliveda for the last several months. And I will just tell you, I am mind blown from the results for myself and also from people who have been buying from me and women on my team. We're talking about regulated cycles because we're taking the internals. We're talking about getting rid of scars and dark marks and brightening the skin from within, and then also using the hair and the body and really helping our entire glow up, really helping our skin get bioactive organic ingredients that are effective. Now, I was using water-based, preservative-based clean beauty before. That pales in no comparison to Oliveda's results because it's all based on the olive leaf extract. Now, if you go and do a quick PubMed search, you will see that hydroxytyrosol, this amazing polyphenol, is so powerful for anything from cancer prevention to reducing viral overload, preventing and reducing bacterial issues, helping with the gut, helping with skin, helping to plump the skin, so many things. It's kind of mind-blowing. I am working on putting a document together so that we have one place that we can find all of the PubMed studies based on the benefits of ingesting the olive leaf extract and the olive leaf itself, plus how it's so beneficial for our skin topically, and it is anti-inflammatory versus pro-inflammatory, which is what I was using prior to this. So I want to make sure you know about this brand because it's incredible. It's amazing. And it's giving people the best results. Now, it's been around in 20 years, for 20 years in Europe. So if you feel like you haven't heard about it, it's because it's been in Europe and they just came over to the United States. So they are a direct-to-consumer model, much like I have been doing for the last several years, meaning that I can share a link with you and I will in turn get an affiliate commission for sharing products that will make a big difference in your health and your life and your confidence. And I want to make sure that you know that this actually is something that you can do with me. If you are intrigued by these products, if you are intrigued by the results that I'm talking about and healing from the inside out and outside in and elevating beauty that way, then just know that the door is open to join my team for Oliveda. We are growing quickly because this is such an exciting time and the products work so well. And if you're just interested in buying, you can simply take the quiz below that I will link in the show notes. And if you purchase 2 of the recommended products from the quiz, you will immediately get a free full-sized eye product to enjoy. No matter how you decide to get involved with Waterless Beauty, just know that it's going to be an awesome ride and you're going to love your results. You're also going to love the community if you join as a consultant because it's very supportive and I've never seen a collaboration quite like this. Everybody's there to support everyone, no matter how small or large their business is. All right, now here's Rachel. We're talking food addiction. Hope you love this episode. Welcome back to the Urban Pharmacy Podcast. It's Stacey Heine, your holistic nutritionist and lifestyle wellness mentor. I hope that you're having a wonderful day. I am excited to share with you a guest today who practices a lot of what I do as well. We have a lot of overlap, and it's a beautiful thing because we both help to reduce the overwhelm of just taking the steps to take control of your life, take back your wellness, and to start feeling your optimal self again. And it is my friend Rachel from Rachel Detroit Coaching. Now, Rachel is a life coach, and she also manages her autoimmune issues with lifestyle. And we're going to learn more about her lifestyle and how she helps people today and get inspired. And we're also going to talk about food, because she and I have talked a lot about food, and that is a big part of lifestyle. And we have both kind of struggled in our own ways with food addiction in the past. So I think that we should talk through that and just kind of talk about the principles of and the steps to take of, lifestyle wellness. So Rach, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Yeah, awesome. I'm so glad to be here.
I am so excited to have you. You and I met several years ago in a plant-based bundle and have stayed in touch ever since. And it's just been awesome to watch your journey and to be in touch with you and chat with you, friend to friend, about, our lifestyle and our strengths and our struggles. So before we get in, why don't you tell people what you're doing, what you're up to these days, and how you help to serve people?
Yeah, cool. So I'm a life coach. I'm Rachel. I'm a life coach, and I love helping people change their entire lifestyle. And I'm a little bit of I don't want to say an extreme life coach, but I really love to help people with like these really extreme changes, right? From living like this certain path, whether it's like an addictive path, or maybe you hate your job, or you're just like done with the way you're living and you want something completely brand new. So I help people with lifestyle changes primarily. And I really, really love, like, one of my favorite things is when someone wants to like uproot their whole entire life and change everything, including their job, just everything. Yeah. Those are my favorite ones. So I do that. And the reason I love that so much is because that is my path. I was a teacher for 8 years, and then I was like, well, I can't, this is it, and I just like uprooted. And there's always like, we always fall back. There's always like some stumbles on the way. And I love to instill like this value of like not having shame around whatever hiccups we have with lifestyle, with being plant-based, with daily exercise, with mindset. So that's kind of where I start.
I love that. Oh my gosh. That's amazing that you really like to help people with major lifestyle transformation, because, I think there's two approaches there. And I think that all of them can blend together really well as well. You can do both, but I find a lot of people want to do that. They want to have a total lifestyle transformation, right? But it's also like they're thinking in their minds, like, how am I even going to do this? Right. And I think it's like, I try to tell people, encourage people, and encourage myself to follow the dream, to follow the vision that you have in your head. Like, it's placed there for a reason, right? And it's possible because it's placed there. Like, if we wouldn't think about it if it wasn't possible. It's possible. It's not going to be easy, but it's possible. And it just, most people are like, yeah, it's just not possible. They'll dream for a minute, but then they're just like, no, and a lot of us as humans, we just want to be in the comfortable space. We don't want to get too uncomfortable. We don't want to go through the painful stuff. It's just human behavior, right? But those other people that actually go after it and do it, oh man, that's got to be really empowering as a coach, to help them really take those massive steps. That's so awesome. And you've done massive strides in your own life too, right? Like major transformations. And like you said, you quit teaching after teaching for 8 years and then decided, hey, I want to be a coach, and help people. That's amazing. Can you tell me, Rach, where in the world did this come from? Like your desire to help people?
Yeah. So I believe I've always had like this desire to help people, which is why I ended up in a high school classroom, like to help children learn math. So, in my heart, I've always been like a helper. And then I received a diagnosis of MS, and this diagnosis like just changed my whole perspective, right? It like broadened my consciousness. It expanded my mind in ways that I didn't even know existed, right? And this is what I like to do with clients too. I always thought like, oh, well, I went to college for this. This is what I'm going to do. Then I'm going to retire and I'm going to get the pension. And then I'm going to, whatever the story
That
is.
ladder, yeah.
Yeah. And so, I just realized after getting a life altering diagnosis, I was just like, wow, like you really could do that, or you could actually just like live this beautiful, awesome life that feels really authentic to you. And there's going to be like ups and downs and challenges. So anyways, after like embarking on that myself, I realized like, I actually want everybody to be able to have this. I want everybody to feel this empowerment. And because I've had to take all the steps and I've had to, struggle, I want to show people what the struggles are, what the little steps are, so that they don't have to have them. So like with my clients, I love to help them so they don't have to like be so stressed out about what is it to eat. Well, I'm going to tell you what to eat because I know you're just getting started. This is extreme. So like this idea of helping people with like the little struggles to empower them to create, to play a big game, really,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love that. I love that. So what helped you after your diagnosis? What helped you lifestyle wise to start feeling better? And how did you even find out that you had MS?
Immediately, like I became a doctor. I was like, oh gosh, I like on the internet, not really, but my brain was like, well, we just got to figure this out. We have to learn. And everything pointed to like medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like really high powered medication. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with using medication when you need it, Yeah. And I realized like that wasn't going to be the only answer. That wasn't going to be, so I started like researching more, and a plant-based lifestyle, the studies, the science behind it, the growing body of evidence, the physicians who are starting to and continuing to like build an army around this way of eating. So I just knew, I was like, well, I know that I have to move my body all the time. Otherwise it's not going to move. And I know that I have to change what I eat. And I had to get sober.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's where I started.
Got it. Sober from alcohol?
Sober from alcohol, all substances, really. I dabbled with marijuana, and marijuana can be looked at as like a medicinal thing too. And it's also breathing in tons of smoke into your lungs. Right. So it's like,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I want to talk today, Rach, about food. I mentioned that at the beginning. And you and I have talked about food addiction just in the DMs. Have you ever struggled with food addiction?
Oh yeah. I was just like a binge eater.
Oh, really?
I was like my number one, well, not number one. It was one of the top 3 coping mechanisms that I had. I had a pretty like rough, traumatic childhood, if you will, and kind of put myself in like these situations that were just not very good. And I would cope by compulsive eating. Yeah.
Same. Totally. Same. I think half of it was because I was a hungry teenager and like adolescent, but at the same time, I would totally use food just to cope. And I truly think so many people out there are dealing with the same thing. What do you think it is about food that makes us feel better? Like, why would we turn to food? Do you think it's really about the pleasure trap, or do you think it's just about stuffing feelings down?
I think it's actually like a tactic of like what we're wanting to do is like give ourselves some relief to take care of ourselves. And a lot of times we have mismatched coping strategies. So we have like long-term issues, we have like deeper issues, and we want to satisfy it with like a short-term coping strategy. And we don't realize it's a short-term coping strategy. We just kind of think, you know, this is just my theory on it. We just think that like, this is the fastest way that I can give myself like some relief. I also see it as like self-harm, right? Because there's really nothing more aggressive than like shoving food in your face when you're done, when you're at capacity, right? So it's like the double-edged sword there.
And it really doesn't feel good after binging. I mean, I don't even like to say that word because it's like a scary word in my opinion, but it's true. Like when you just, you know, you take the brownie and then you're like, I'm just going to have the cookie. Oh man, now I want some ice cream or whatever. Like, and you just go. It really sucks the way that you feel afterward. And I definitely, like, even into like my late teens, early 20s, I have vivid memories of myself laying on a couch, like just watching TV, like after just binging like frozen pizza and cereal and whatever, ice cream. Thankfully I didn't go down the rabbit hole too much with like fast food. I mean, I had fast food a lot, but it wasn't like I would buy like Whopper, like multiple Whoppers and stuff. Like I would have like a Wendy's French fry and then a Frosty and like a chicken nugget. And then I would come home and I would like have some more stuff. Like it just, and I always felt I was so depressed. Like I felt so crappy and horrible until I broke free. And that's been a specific journey for me. And I still use food to cope. Like I totally do. I use food to celebrate. And I also use food if I'm not feeling well. And it's something that I'm like, I feel like I'm always going to be on this journey. But I want to know, have you broken free from that? Are you still struggling with that? And if you have broken free, or maybe you go through phases like I do, what has helped you?
Yeah, it's definitely been a journey, and mine started like similar to yours with like at a young age. It was like my number one, you know, before I could drink alcohol or use drugs or whatever, that was like legal. And that's like what my family, that's like what everyone taught. So, and now I would say I have an awareness to it, right? So I don't struggle with it as much anymore. I have like an awareness, and I realize like, oh, I don't feel awesome. And a lot of times what I'm actually feeling is tired. And I think that, you know, and I think in this society, the way that we're programmed is that we don't do rest. It's that rest is like, it's not prioritized. It's almost like, I don't want to say shameful, but it's like, I was raised in a house that we were like applauded for working long hours and producing and producing and producing. So I think, so now as I continue to work with this, right, because it does pop up, right? Sometimes like I've had this bag of date sweetened chocolate chips. And I'm like, why did you
Girl,
they're so
I
good.
brought those into my house, and it was just literally last month. Not a good idea. Okay, keep going.
Yeah. And so it's like, now I have this awareness. It's like, oh, what you do is you fill your hand up and then you go slam. So it's like, you're not enjoying it. You as in me, I'm not enjoying it. I'm not taking, so what's really helped me is to like slow it down and to like be present with what I'm doing. Even if I do slam the 17 chocolate chips, just being aware with like, oh, you did that again. That's okay. But what is it that you actually need? Because like I said, it's like, it's a short-term solution for a long-term problem, right? So it's like, I'm tired. Slamming chocolate chips gives me like 1 second of relief. Whereas like if I would just go meditate or go lay down, I would feel a lot better.
But the dopamine hit's not as high when we do stuff like that, right? When we really take care of ourselves. And that, for me, like, let's just go to those chocolate chips, for instance, because I'm going to talk about the pleasure trap now, because that is what has helped me tremendously. And even if I do find myself overeating or binging or indulging or whatever you want to call it, I don't feel the same way as I used to, because typically it's not terrible food. Like, I'll eat a copious amount of veggie sushi and I'll feel wonderful, like fine and wonderful. Now, those chocolate chips though, and that is where, I have to identify foods, like trigger foods. And like those I have not had candy in my house for years. I used to have like a candy drawer when I was growing up. And then once we moved into our house, like I had a candy Tupperware in my pantry. And then I started moving it down each shelf so that it was like more out of sight, out of mind. And then I would like eventually year over year, like the candy would be hidden back. So I really couldn't see it. And now I just don't have it in the house. Like I just don't, for the last 3 years, I've been pretty much SOS free. That's salt, oil, and sugar for those that are listening and aren't aware of this lifestyle. And this is what has really helped me a lot. But even though those chocolate chips that are brand new out on the market are sweetened with dates, holy moly, they still trigger that high dopamine hit for me. And I don't pound them like by the hand like you do, but I'll make a cookie. Okay. I'll make a cookie and then I'll take the cookies out of the oven and I'll pick each chocolate chip out until I like ruin all the cookies. And then I'll go and eat the rest of the cookie later. It's just bizarre behavior. That I remember doing that, like when I worked in bakeries and stuff. I would pick all the chocolate chips and the white chocolate chips out of cookies. It's just a thing. Okay. And I find myself getting back into those behaviors, but it's because I have those trigger foods in my house. So I don't know how you like teach clients or help yourself, but knowing what trigger foods are is really, really important for me. And just not having them in my atmosphere is like so important. So have you ever done like the SOS free? Have you ever noticed that like salt, oil, and sugar, or a combination of those foods, trigger overconsumption, those higher palatability, high dopamine releasing food combinations?
Yeah, the sugar, all of it. I've tried SOS free and I'm definitely oil free. I was salt free for a really long time. I called myself the anti-salt. And then I realized like I wasn't retaining water properly. So I kind of like needed to, but sugar is my main trigger food. And overall, I don't buy. I just like I use date syrup in recipes. And sometimes I find like once I start that, this is the coin of the addict. Once we start, we can't stop. Right. And so sometimes it's actually relieving to just say, well, I just don't even want that. I just don't have that. Like thinking about like alcohol or beer. I just don't drink alcohol. Why? Because once I start, that's 5 years. Once I start, I can't stop. And taking that approach for food in some ways has been helpful for me, just like, but sometimes it creeps in. Like I want to make cookies for my family. I want to take it to Thanksgiving. And then that's when it starts. And right
Yeah.
now I'm in the aftermath of Thanksgiving. They observe, oh, there's leftover chocolate chips from the cookies I
Right.
had to make for everybody.
Right. Right.
I had to make them. And so now it's like this residual effect of,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. And so, and same here, like with the salt, like it's not like I'm sitting here demonizing. First off, I'm not demonizing oil. Like I just, I did for a while, especially after, following like the Esselstyns and learning about the endothelial damage and stuff like that. But we all should know, should be very aware that oil is the highest caloric density food on the planet. So if you're trying to find any sort of weight loss, which majority of the people that I work with are working on that. I mean, if we look at the statistics of the Americans, it's 3/4 of Americans are either overweight or obese. So oil, cutting that out could be beneficial. Now, like olive oil does have some benefits. And Dr. Joel Kahn was on the podcast for a second time. And like the very first thing that he said, it was based on this huge study. And he was like, oil's not terrible. And he, like on the first podcast, was saying that it was. And it's just so funny because I don't know, science does evolve and there are some benefits to, a good quality raw olive oil or whatever. But like, I don't add it, I think the people are like putting these foods on a pedestal. People are also putting like salt on a pedestal and like pounding salt in these like large amounts of food. I don't know if you've been seeing people drinking all of those salt drinks like very often.
Like potassium salt water.
Well, yeah. And like the Element,
Yeah.
I mean, they're just drinking like multiple of them a day, like exceeding way above, what would be quote recommended of 1,500 milligrams a day and all of that stuff. And anyways, it's really, the problem is, guys, if you're listening, in my opinion, is not the oil itself in isolation or the salt itself in isolation or even the sugar itself in isolation, even though I think that sugar is it's not cool at all. It's just when you combine the salt and the fat, you combine the salt and the sugar or the sugar and the fat, that really it just, if you haven't read the Pleasure Trap by Dr. Doug Lisle and Dr. Goldhammer, it's really good to do that so that you can understand how these foods are interacting in our brain and just releasing this extreme dopamine. So like if I have salt, it's usually like a really low fat, like dish, like with miso, like a miso soup, or I'm using it in broth and I'm not like combining it with a whole bunch of fatty foods, because that's just like when it just, really triggers me. And I think it's so important, Rach. I don't know about you, but like everybody's different. I mean, some people, like for me, I have a horribly addictive personality. I mean, or I could say a wonderfully addictive personality, just depending on how you want to say it, right? How you want to look at it. It's a wonderfully addictive personality because I could be really addicted to exercise or doing something really good, right? Like good for my body, gentle exercise or gentle yoga or whatever. But I also used to drink copious amounts of alcohol, I used to take copious amounts of Adderall. I was subscribed to it, or prescribed to it, but I also overused it, and same thing with food. So super highly addictive personality. For me, the SOS free typically, I mean, that lifestyle really works for me. Also works for my husband because he has the same type of eating behaviors. But I think everybody's so different. Do you find that? Like some people are fine with moderation. I'm not typically so good off with moderation. I'm really much more better with abstinence. Are you personally? How, I mean, I see your recipes. Like it seems like typically you're doing moderation. Are you okay? Are you good with that? Is that how you work?
Yeah, I would say, I love this. I love, that you brought awareness to like, not everything's always bad and and different people have different needs. Like, for example, if someone's like, has like a heart, high cholesterol or heart disease, like you definitely don't want to eat oil.
Right.
Like that's the way to go.
Yeah.
And for me, like what I do in terms of abstinence, my trigger foods are like sugar And you can even see in my recipes. So you'll see, like, I'll make one pancake recipe, and then the next one will also be a sugary recipe, because
Oh, same.
I'm on the ladder. I'm like, oh, I just got some sugar, and then I'm going to do it again with oatmeal tomorrow. And
Yeah.
then, and so, like, abstinence is easier for me because I don't have to think. It's not a decision, right? It's like, I don't have to make this decision about, like, how much sugar am I going to use? And I think moderation can work in certain things for me, right?
Mhm.
So, like, in alcohol, I'm not even interested in, like, trying what that might look like.
Yeah.
In certain things, I'm not even curious about it. Although there are some things, like, I do want to eat pancakes,
Yeah.
and it's about, like, redirecting the energy. And this is what I advocate in my coaching, is like, how can we redirect the energy? So instead of Rachel using a ton of maple syrup in the recipe, what about redirecting it towards bananas? What
Yeah.
about chopping up some apples and using cinnamon? What
Yep.
about using an applesauce if I want something, like, wet and
Right.
moist? It's all about, like, this redirection of energy, and what you allow your brain to expand to fulfill that need, right? Like I said, we just want, like, the quickest solution. And a lot of times for me, like, the quickest solution is, like, syrup and chocolate chips.
Yeah.
Like, that's just instant, because who wants to, like, cook down some apples and wait for the cinnamon and mash up a banana?
Mhm.
But that's actually those are long-term solutions,
Yes.
that satisfy me, and I will feel good in the long term, versus, like, my quick dopamine hit of chocolate and syrup, which I don't shame myself when I do it, which is why
Right.
you see me cook with it. And then I'm, like, smiling in the camera. I'm like, pancakes.
Hey, before we get too far into this episode, I want to be sure you know about the Vegan Health Bundle. It is available only through March 10th of 2024. So we have a very limited time to get this. This is the best bundle of the year. You're going to have resources, tools, courses, ebooks, and so much more to get you on the path to better living. This entire bundle is whole food, plant-based, and free of added oil. And in addition to recipes and batch cooking and organization, you're also going to have mind body connection and mindset and raw food and just a whole gamut of things that are going to help you elevate your wellness. It's not just food, but it's what goes into your daily living. It goes all the way into habits and so much more. So I really hope that you check out and get the bundle. It's $50 for over $8,000 worth of content to help you not just survive, but to thrive. It is your time to step into your next chapter and to live at your higher level. And the Ultimate Vegan Health Bundle will help you get there. So click down in the show notes to grab your bundle for only $50 today through March 10th. And then after that, it's gone forever. So grab it and enjoy. Back to the show. I have maple syrup in my house. I haven't used it in 3 years. It's just been sitting there. I use date paste or date puree for everything, because it's such a slippery slope for me. Like, honey and maple syrup, like honey for me. And I know maybe a lot of vegans might be hearing this, but, honey is a means to get herbs down. It's like, the Mary Poppins spoonful of sugar to get the medicine to go down. Like, it's a vehicle for herbs that otherwise don't taste good. Like, so I'll do infusions and stuff like that and use honey for medicinal purposes. Maple syrup is a trigger for me. So I just use dates, and just like you said, applesauce, bananas. The whole foods keep me a little bit more in check. I mean, I just have vivid memories of, like, just like rice cakes, like pouring maple syrup on rice cakes and just, like, eating almost the whole thing of freaking rice cakes, dude. Like, I just needed just sugar, it's just so addicting for me. So, but some people just don't operate that way, and they don't have to have those bright lines, if you will. And I think that that's great, but everybody everybody's so different. So, but can very much relate with you. Once you make a baked good, then you're like, I'm making another one. Oh, I'm making another one. So you recently told me, Rachel, that you've been focusing more on higher protein foods. Do you find that helps you curb your sugar cravings, or why are you focusing on higher protein? What is that doing for you?
Yeah. And it's plant protein that I'm loving.
Love that.
For higher protein. And, and I have experimented with like, oh, we'll just do a little animal protein. And it makes me feel terrible. It's actually, and I went plant-based for the health to start, but I love the animals too. And like, it's the most superior protein, plant protein. And what it's doing for me is like, I'm not hungry all the time. Instead of being like, I would eat something where I didn't like adequately count the protein or pay attention. And then I would work out and lift weights. I love lifting weights. And so then I'm like hungry. I'm like a hungry ghost with that skinny throat, big mouth, big stomach, and like never satisfied, So I've been eating like 30 grams of protein minimally. I mean, that's like what my brain says is the goal per meal. And I've had to supplement with, I use Naked Pea protein, like protein powder, because the only ingredient is peas.
That's nice. That's it. That's great.
That's it. The only thing in
That's
it.
fantastic.
Yeah. And it makes
the low fat too. That's great. Because the only other clean protein powder that I found and like have ever felt aligned with even promoting was the Complement one, but it's kind of higher in fat, I think. I haven't really looked at the fat like content, but I mean, it's like nuts and seeds and pea protein. So it's nice and clean, but it's very hard to find clean protein powders that are plant-based or animal-based. They all typically have natural flavors or stuff added to them. So that's awesome. I didn't even know they had just a pure pea protein. That's fantastic. I bet that's a big whammy of protein.
It's awesome. And I love to put it in my oatmeal. I put it in my smoothies. I kind of like sneak it into anything. Sometimes it tastes weird, but I eat it anyways. The pancakes that I was making, I would throw it in there. And it's really helping me to like not feel like I need to binge and feel more satisfied. I would highly recommend it. I know all the plant-based gurus, not all of them, but a decent amount don't advocate protein. Although, right, thinking about different lifestyles. Well, I'm lifting weights. I'm working out for, and so I believe like my goals are to build more muscle. Because one of like the theories I follow is like disease reversal. People who, this could be a whole other episode or tangent, but oftentimes people who have disease, whether it's like an autoimmune disease, cancer, obesity, whatever, the commonality is lack of muscle. And so what we want to like support prevention of that disease or whatever body repair by increasing muscle, it decreases disease activity. And so that's why I'm very into, increasing the protein to increase the muscle.
Yeah. So what are your favorite outside of the protein powder? What are some of your favorite higher protein meals that you like can give us some ideas for?
Yeah. I today for lunch I had tempeh. It was like a tempeh stir fry. It was my first time eating tempeh. It's a little bit weird. You got like first time ever.
What?
Yeah, I had to jump on the train. I was like, I've been plant-based for 5 years, and I've never eaten tempeh.
Tempeh was one of the first things that I tried. It was a tempeh bacon because I got Alicia Silverstone's book called The Kind Diet. And it was all macrobiotic. And there was this tempeh in it, and it was like I think there was brown rice syrup. Like it was like a sweet bacon tempeh thing. And I would make it for me and Kyle like all the time. It was bomb. I haven't made that anymore because of the syrup in it, but I actually make it in a different way now. It's more of like a tomatoey ketchup one. So how did you prepare it? Did you think it was bitter?
So when I first cut it up, of course, I ate some raw and plain.
Yeah.
I wanted to see, well, I don't know if I never really know like if tofu is considered raw. Sometimes I will just like eat tofu.
Our son, dude, he just eats a whole container of tofu straight up out of the thing. He just eats it.
Right? That's the way to go.
It's totally cooked. I mean, it's cooked.
Yeah. So I just tasted it to start and I was like, oh, this is peculiar. But I like that it had like a chunk, a bite to it with the beans, like whole beans.
Yes.
I didn't marinate it. I kind of did it in like pure Rachel Detroit style, which is like kind of quickie. I just chopped it up. I put it in the pot with like a variety of vegetables, celery. I say variety, and then all I can come up with celery. Celery, cabbage, carrots, just like everything, onions I had in my fridge, garlic. And then I used tamari. And I just like put tamari over it. And then I had a salsa, like a really hot salsa in my fridge. So I used a couple tablespoons of that salsa and and I had spaghetti squash too. And I just mixed it all together. And then I've eaten it now for 2 days in a row and it's pretty much done.
Yeah. Did you cube it?
Yeah, I cubed it up. I'll buy it again. It's good. I'm interested. I'm curious.
Yeah. And our son finds it bitter. It does have a bitter taste. It's a fermented food. But I think in terms of soy products, the superior thing would be the whole bean, the edamame, just whole. But then I'd say tempeh would be the next best, and then tofu, and then your soy milk in terms of processing. And the tempeh, it's just, I mean, it's good for you. I think that people should experiment with it. And if they find it bitter, something that I recently did, which I don't have a lot of juice. Juice can be a little bit of a trigger for me too. It can be a sugar trigger. So I have to beware, just like flour. It's triggering, even if it's a whole grain flour, it's still triggering. Juice, if I have it out, away from flour, not like on the same day, I'm fine with it. And so what I've been doing is actually taking apple cider and simmering tofu or tempeh cubes in it. And it's really actually takes that bitterness out. But I've just also heard that if people do find it bitter, you can boil it first and then go and drain it and then go to saute it and it will be less bitter. So you should totally try tempeh bacon. That's fun. It's delicious.
Yeah, I want to play more with tempeh. I love, I just like searched it up real quick, but there's 20 grams of protein in 100-gram serving. And like, that's high protein.
Heck yeah, it for sure is. And it's easy to eat a large amount of it because, I mean, it's just condensed, it's like concentrated. So I like that. Okay.
Fat. It is higher in
fat. All soy products are. Yeah. Right. Well, higher in fat. So like that would be a fat source,
And just like making sure when creating meals, like balancing it. Like I'm not going to do tofu and an avocado.
Right. No.
It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Yep. That soy fat is there and that's what you're getting. You're not going to do a cheesy soy cashew thing. That's not going to happen. I saw that you recently posted a cauliflower Alfredo, and I'm in the middle of making something pretty similar. I love using potatoes and cauliflower to make like cheesy sauces. It's so awesome. You don't have to, load up the fat, even if it's plant fat. We still want to stay. I mean, do you have a rule of thumb, Rach? And then we're going to get back to your day of eating. Sorry, I got off track. Do you have like a rule of thumb of like percentage? Are you kind of like guiding people on a specific percentage of fat per day, like 10% or below, 15% or below? Or are you just kind of like you said, just kind of trying to keep things kind of balanced?
To keep inflammation low, I like to adhere to 15 grams or less of saturated fat.
Oh yeah.
and kind of being more loose with the like regular fat, if you
Mhm.
will.
Mhm.
Um, so I don't have like a hard rule on fat, but I do have a hard rule on saturated fat because that's going to be more harmful,
Mhm.
especially
Mhm.
like for inflammation and things like that. What about you?
Yeah. I have never measured it. Um, I I if I were guiding somebody else, like for myself, I don't measure it. Sometimes my body just wants more fat, you know what I mean? And like I just do that. Like I'll just like yesterday I wanted more peanut butter and I just ate more peanut butter. Um, but I keep a relatively low fat diet anyways. It's mostly whole carbohydrates and vegetables and fruits and whole grains and beans. And then I have nuts and seeds, you know, but it's actually quite low. And that's just the way that I feel the best with hypothyroidism. That's just how my body feels best. I think it's really important for people to listen to what's to their body. It's really important. But I also think that there is a lot of science showing that 15% metabolically around that 15% fat in general or lower is optimal. So yeah. If I were to, you know, really have to count the grams and stuff like that for somebody else, I would say 15% or lower. Some say 20, some say 10. So kind of depends on the science that you're following. Okay, so you did a tempeh veggie dish. And then what else would a day in your life look like eating wise? Do you skip breakfast? Do you ever skip dinner? I'm a dinner skipper, if you will. Try to cut it off early. That's me. I eat a lot in the day, morning in the day. Do you do that?
Yeah, I'm very similar. I always start with a smoothie for breakfast, and I make sure to include either protein powder to get it up, or like you can just throw in a piece of tofu.
Mm-hmm.
I love the smoothie because you can get plant-based variety in there. If you have a couple carrots, right? My base is always the same. I like to be of habit. It makes me feel like perhaps like safe or well taken care of, that I know like what I'm gonna get. But I always will do like some greens, and you know, I don't measure it, but I do like 2 big handfuls of organic greens. I'll do some berries. I love berries in the smoothie. It's a lower sugar fruit instead of like, you know, although like all fruit is awesome, right?
Yeah, yeah,
But I'll choose berries, and then I don't use almond milk in it or soy milk. I use water in
yeah.
my smoothie. And then I'll add like, let's see, I do like some mushroom adaptogen things that I do, but I'm looking over there because that's where all to my
Yeah.
stash is. But you could throw in like a cucumber or some carrots,
Mhm.
or like I love this smoothie because it's such a beautiful vessel to get more plant variety. Throw the tofu in there. I experiment kind of with like what I have on hand. I if I wanted to be, I could definitely be more strict and like really right. But I think life is already kind of strict. So like
Yeah.
if I play like, oh, today I'll throw in 2 carrots, like, ooh,
Yeah.
you wild woman.
I know,
So
right?
so I'd love to start with the smoothie. And then after that, like if I'm extra hungry, I'll have like a little bit of oatmeal, like in between that and like lunch, or a piece of fruit. And I'm kind of protein powder crazy right now. I don't know.
It's
But
okay. I've gone through those phases.
like I'll put oatmeal and I'm like, well, I just need 2 scoops of protein powder, like so that I can have a 40-gram protein meal. Um, and then like lunch, and I like to incorporate like greens or a salad or something like light, and making sure that I get like but usually it's like some tofu or some beans, or I love lentils. I make a lot of like lentil dishes. And the pasta, the Banza pasta, or like actually that's just the first brand, but like these bean pastas, like
Yeah.
lentil bean, they pack a lot of nutrients. They're nutrient dense, they're calorie dense.
Yeah.
They are processed. They are like, you know, for the world, like bean versus a pasta, they're like decently processed, but I do believe they offer a lot of like flexibility. They're quick, they're easy. And they do have like the calories and the protein and low fat. So I
Mhm.
usually, I'm kind of a pasta. I like quick stuff, Stacy.
Same
I
here.
want it to be like fast,
Yeah.
because I'm always on the go. I want to eat well. I have my fruit bowl. It's full of like green apples. I choose green. They're lower in sugar,
Mhm.
grapefruit. I am a banana freak too. Sometimes I'm like, you ate 4 bananas today, like just ate
I
them.
eat 4 bananas as a snack in my ice cream. So I get it.
Perfect. Yeah. We're on the same wavelength.
Yeah. So I can't do I think it's fun to hear from different, how we do this. I don't do smoothies. I can do smoothies. I mean, I can, but I don't want to. They don't bring me joy. And they just don't fill me up. Like when I used to own my Pilates studio, I would like try to, same with protein powders. And I was plant-based. I've been plant-based for, I don't know, like 13 or 14 years now. I don't know. I lost track. I think it's 14 years. I just, I wish actually that I would enjoy them, just because it's such a, like you said, it's such a good way to get the diversity into your diet. And that's actually really important for our gut health. But they just don't fill me. I'm like that person that really likes to eat. You know what I mean? Like I like to like chew, even though I could actually work on my chewing. That's a note to everybody listening to this. Try to chew your food really, really well. I'm not that good of a chewer, but I like eating versus drinking. Cause my husband, when he first met me, he was like, we were in the car and we had gotten like a milkshake or something. This was before I went plant-based. We ate naughty foods often, if you want to call them good and bad foods. We ate less than optimal foods. Okay. And we would like pull out of the place that we went to get a smoothie at, or like a milkshake. And I mean, I could get the extra large one. And by the time we were halfway home, he like looked over, he's like, are you done? Like it was gone. I mean, I would just, I just slurp it down so fast. So for me, smoothies don't work. I wish they do. And I wish they would. I wish I could like overcome it, but it's been decades and I've been trying to overcome it. I think it really brings me back to like my childhood with like ice cream and malts and milkshakes. I would just down them. So, but I have heard that if you do want to really get on the smoothie game, chew your smoothie. Do you ever do that? Do you like drink and kind of like chew it and then swallow it? Or do you just
Sometimes I don't blend it all the way. Like when I put carrots
Ah.
in there, I'll just like kind of leave it chunky. Sometimes by mistake, but sometimes on purpose. And that's like when I feel like, oh, I just worked out hard and I need some more like,
Yeah.
more,
Something to gnaw on.
some gumption in my smoothie. Like I need.
That's a good tip. I love that. I make Cohen and Kyle smoothies all the time. They like love it. But if you give me a smoothie, I'll be like, okay, when are we eating? Like I'll drink the smoothie and I'm like, where's my meal now? Like I don't know. It doesn't do it for me. I wish it did. Even with the protein powder. I mean, again, when I like owned the studio, I tried to keep myself like full all the time. And I would have like a protein shake, like 3 times a day. And I was still just like famished. It's just bizarre. So I think everybody works differently.
I want to throw you a suggestion if you
Sure.
ever want to try.
If I ever want to try again, which I won't, but give me a suggestion.
Okay, I'm going to throw it at you. So I love this one. It's like quite indulgent. It's like, it might trigger your milkshake days, but if you think of black beans, 2 bananas, like if you want some density,
Yeah.
like 2 bananas, 2 frozen bananas, some black beans, milk of choice, and cacao, and then like throw in some veggies, like like slip them in there, those sneaky vegetables.
Frozen cauliflower. Yeah.
And it's kind of like a brownie batter. I've made a recipe for this. I called it brownie batter smoothie. So
That's
maybe
interesting.
Well,
That's a
you
good
don't have to
idea.
consider it, but so, maybe Cohen would like it.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Oh, I've totally thrown like Kyle and Cohen have no idea all of the foods that they've eaten. I'm just like, what's in the refrigerator is going in. And we buy bananas by the case and I freeze them in large food service containers in the chest freezer. So I at least always have that. And I also think that like you said, like carrots and even frozen zucchini can be helpful in smoothies, especially if people are trying to go lower in fat or lower in sugar. Like the frozen cauliflower can be good. I have done beans, but not like on purpose. This is just because there was some beans in the refrigerator and I threw them in. But I like that because black beans take on chocolate. Oh, so well. I mean, like yesterday I had, like when I was talking about peanut butter, I didn't just have peanut butter. I had peanut butter on my black bean brownies. Okay. And it was really freaking good. And I love making brownies with black beans. I like love it. It's like fudgy and delicious and so fulfilling. And okay, so I wanted to talk, I need to go back to the salsa thing. I just like to share. I like to be we're talking about food addiction and I want to be like as transparent as we can for people that might relate. And so for me, salsa used to be a trigger. Not because of the salsa, because of the salt. So if I bring a jar of salsa in my house, I was like, oh, bless her cute little heart. When you said that you put a few tablespoons of salsa on, I was like, oh God, look at that control that she's got. I would eat the jar. Okay. You give me a salsa and I'm like, oh my God, this is so good. And I eat the jar. Like there's no way that I'm not eating the jar. And even if you eat the jar, the calories are not high. It's probably like 100, maybe 200 calories max.
Right.
The salt was just like, I would just shovel the whole thing. So I have to make my own salsas all the time. I even freeze my salsas. Yes, the texture gets different, but if you actually put it back into the blender after it thaws and throw in a little bit of fresh lime juice and fresh cilantro, you can, because if I'm going to make a salsa, I'm not just going to make one jar. I'm making like a vat of it because like you, I really do like to keep food. I like to make easy recipes. But I can't find freaking salt-free salsa out there. So anyway, that's a trigger for me, but now pasta, like you were talking about the bean pasta. For me, sometimes eating whole beans is like annoying to my digestion. And that's just because I technically have or used to have SIBO. I was like officially diagnosed with that actually at the beginning of 2023. I likely have had it IBS. So I likely have had that since junior high when my digestive issues started. When I had a lot of anxiety in my life, when I started using food to cope, and then my gut just got jacked. I probably have had it for my whole life, truthfully. And now I'm finally addressing it, getting it more under control, taking supplements, changing my lifestyle even more, blah, 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 blah. But sometimes just whole beans, they can definitely make me gassy. I know so many people struggle with that. So if I want a lot of protein, those bean pastas have been game changing because I do have thyroid issues. So I don't use a lot of soy and that's not to say that people with thyroid issues can't have soy. That's just that some people don't feel well on it. And I am one of those people. So I don't use a lot of soy. But the bean pastas are amazing. There's black bean pastas. There's even edamame pastas. And then there's yellow pea, split pea pastas. I'm obsessed with that. And I feel really well on them. And that helps me get beans in without like getting super gassy. I wanted to share all those things.
Yeah, I agree. And I've never looked at, so this is where you're like piquing my interest. I've never looked at the salt on the salsa.
Oh girl, don't look.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna look. It's probably gonna say like 80% of your daily value. But what I always do is I buy like extremely hot salsa. It's so
same. I love it. I love it so hot.
Yeah. And so like I can't even fathom more than 2 tablespoons. Like that's pushing it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It's so hot that like my face will be dripping
and like everything's, you're just sweating. Like I used so much cayenne on my food yesterday. I've been using cayenne to increase hydrochloric acid and just digestibility of foods. And I love spicy foods. I freaking love it. And spicy foods can make things taste saltier, which is great.
Yeah. Yeah.
I also, I have not put this on my blog yet, and I need to. I keep saying I'm going to. I literally think I said a year ago to Anne and Jane Esselstyn when I interviewed them that I was gonna give the recipe out. I made a sriracha with raisins
Oh,
and
girl.
vinegar and red jalapeno flakes. And it is bomb. Sriracha has sugar in it. I used to eat a lot of sriracha because, again, I like the spiciness, but it was loaded with sugar and pretty high in salt. Again, we're not demonizing salt, but for me, I gotta be.
Yes, we are. Just kidding.
We are. It's all horrible. You can only eat fruit for the rest of your life, okay? No. Yeah. So an SOS free sriracha. It is so good. I've really got to get that recipe out. Maybe I should give that as a Christmas gift to the world. I should put it on my blog.
Do that. Yeah.
Okay.
Like an early Christmas gift, like
an early, like, because you want it now.
a gift that'll come out next week.
Like now. You want it now. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll air it early December, and I will have the recipe linked below, along with all the ways to find Rachel so that you can be motivated by her. Okay, I feel like we could talk all day, Rach, but we're gonna have to, we gotta wrap it up. I want to know from you. Well, first off, is there anything else that's on your mind that you want to share with people? Just tips or anything that's on your mind. And if not, it's fine.
Yeah, I do have one little thing, but I'm long-winded, so we'll keep it short. I believe all the things we talked about with food addiction or like compulsive behaviors, I believe that once we can uncover what our actual needs are and like work to redirect some of that energy, some of our compulsiveness can be like that beautiful, strong compulsion, that strong energy to eat 25 cookies in a row. Like we can redirect it into other things too, which is kind of like my big thought lately. But that's all that's in my mind.
I love that. And I want to piggyback that with understanding our own behaviors and putting that energy towards somewhere else, like you just said, but also finding the root cause of what's going on. I'm currently I'm taking a root cause certification right now. And it's fascinating because when I think root cause, typically you're thinking, oh, it's mold exposure. Oh, it's parasites. Oh, what's the root cause of your problems? Oh, it's metabolic disease. Like there's a lot of like physical root causes, right? But the root causes that I'm learning about, those are part of it. But a very large part is energetic. A very large part is traumatic. A very large part is our upbringing. And it's so important to understand our past so that we can then change our future. And I know that you totally practice that too. Like if you want to change your whole lifestyle, you have to understand who you were, change that, but also understand why you were who you were. And now let's turn to the next chapter, right? Like let's start writing, or maybe even start writing the next book. Now that we've uncovered these root causes of our behaviors and our actions and our thoughts and our self-worth. So I love that. Maybe I've asked you this before when I interviewed before for the bundle, but I don't think I did. So I'm going to ask you this because I ask most people this. What does holistic living mean to you?
It means that we're caring. It means caring for the whole, like the whole part of self, emotionally, physically, nutritionally, energetically, and not hating, not shaming, not degrading, because a lot of this is emotional. A lot of our
Mm-hmm.
compulsion is emotional, not shaming who I used to be, not hating that girl who drank a 6-pack by herself in 8 minutes. No, I'm just kidding, but like in a quick amount of time. But integrating that, all that energy into this whole me, where I can redirect it to holistically eating whole foods, looking at holistic stress management techniques, meditation, relaxation, but understanding that like the whole takes time to develop, and that in this lifetime, we probably won't develop it completely, and
Yeah.
giving ourselves grace for that.
I love that. Thanks for sharing, Rach. And how can we follow you?
Yeah, folks can follow me on Instagram at Rachel Detroit Coaching, on Facebook, Rachel Detroit Coaching, my website, racheldetroitcoaching.com, or YouTube, Rachel Detroit Coaching.
Love it.
My email, rachel@racheldetroitcoaching.com.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So if anybody has aligned with Rachel's message, she works with people to help them with their lifestyle. So make sure you stay connected and reach out to her. And thanks, Rach, for coming on. Appreciate it.
Thank you. This was awesome.
All right. Be well.
All right. Take care.